Hey everyone, how we doing tonight? It's 7 p.m. on this lovely Monday evening. I am Daniel Plaza, Epicenters community manager. How's everyone doing? Um, if you're here with us in chat, I would love for you to say hello or hi or hola or whatever language you have. Just drop it in the chat so we know you're here and give us some good support. For folks that might not know or joining us maybe for the first time, I just want to share a word about Epicenter. We are a community journalism initiative that started off as a newsletter to connect neighbors to the pandemic around information about COVID-19 and how to access resources. And now we've grown into much more, as you can see here from this lovely live stream. We publish articles, offer, public information and other resources, as well as a weekly podcast, host forums, and also, some IRL events or in real life events that gets folks the information and the resources they need. So today we're going to be speaking with the team behind Alone/Together, which is a lovely short documentary that has this uniquely participatory element where folks around the world, that is artists, travelers, teachers, children, parents, essential workers, have submitted their footage and kind of created this global story about the experience of struggling and persevering through the pandemic. The film is available for a sneak peek right now to stream online until December 19th. I'll drop that link in the chat for folks that want to access it. It's going to be available, like I said, until the 19th. And so, we can, if you have seen the film already, great. You can have some nice discussion as well as a moment to maybe ask the team some questions. So, we'll be speaking tonight with the director of the film, Hsuan Yu Pan, and the producer, Nancy Wolfe. We'll discuss a lot of the themes from the film that reflect the New Yorkers' experience. That would be, issues such as around mental health, anti-Asian racism, general fear of disease, how parents cope with remote learning and whatnot. And as well, I want to make a note that we will be having a Q&A session towards the end of the conversation. So please drop in your questions or comments throughout the discussion. Just out of courtesy and respect to our guests, I'm going to try to keep my attention to the conversation, but we will be monitoring chat. So please drop those in and, we'll ask them towards the end. So, without further ado, let's get our guests in here. All righty, nice, very seamless. How y'all doing? You hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. So just let me give a quick, background on you two, if you don't mind, so folks know where you're coming in from. So we have Hsuan Yu Pan, the director, once again, from the films. She's originally from Taiwan. She's a New York-based documentary filmmaker who loves to explore human stories through her lens. As a recent participant in Lower Manhattan Cultural Council's Governor's Island COVID response residency program, nailed it. She developed film projects related to migration and the pandemic, including Here, Eat, Home, and now Alone Together. And we're also welcoming Nancy Wolfe, producer of the film. She has honed her storytelling and technical skills as a video producer for Documentary Now and as an executive producer on Fit to Print, a documentary chronicling the demise of watchdog reporting in newspapers. She also photographed, edited, and recorded sound for the film. She's directing Rocky Flats, a documentary about Cold War era nuclear waste in Denver, Colorado. She is a producer also on Off Country, a feature-length documentary and multimedia project about nuclear testing in the U.S. Does that share a little bit about you two? Is there anything I missed?
That's all great.
Yeah, that's all great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, welcome. How are we feeling today?
Oh, great. And thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So the film first, was offered for sneak preview, I believe, last Friday, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how was that first night? How are you feeling since then?
We are very excited, and people who already watched, they dropped us some very nice notes. Appreciating our work, like connect the people together during the isolation time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, actually, why don't we get with the first question would be, how did this film come together?
Okay. So I guess I start.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So it's the situation is like before the lockdown, like worldwide, specifically like in New York, we actually had like a New Year, like a Lunar New Year dinner, like back then. I mean, when was that, Nancy? Do you remember?
Yes, it was, I think, December.
Or maybe January.
Or maybe it was January.
Yeah, I think that's
2020.
January.
It was Chinese New Year.
Right. So yeah, around that time. So as you just mentioned, like I'm from Taiwan, originally from Taiwan. I have family over there, and my sister's family. My brother-in-law at that time was in Wuhan. Like he was sent there for business. It's a business trip. So at some point, like I hear my sister like start to like very worry about because like one thing they heard about this like over there like before like people here like understand like what's going on like in Asia like something already happened. So at some point that I think I mean now my memory a little bit blurry now, but around the time like when Wuhan locked down, my brother-in-law was still there, so he was locked down in the city altogether. Couldn't come back. Yeah, so my sister was very worried. I tried to get her husband back, or all that thing, and so we participated in the conversation, and also like my sister. It's basically my family. My sister's family, like all, like, was in a big mess because her son is here in the US also like a study, and at some point like need to force to go back home. I mean, all the international students had to go back to their home country. And I'm here and I locked down in New York. So everyone is like locked down. Like my family, many of them are just in different places, like facing like a unknown, like what's going on situation. So that's basically why I start doing this project. I want to connect with my friends, my family still, during the time. Yeah. So we start this. Yeah.
So what I heard is that, you had family, now around the world. You had family in the U.S. as well as in, excuse me, you said by Wuhan as well?
My brother-in-law was there for business trip. So yeah, in Wuhan, right
Got
there.
It. So very, very close. Yeah. From one epicenter to the next.
Yeah.
And then, so what I heard you share is that you wanted a way to maybe connect with your family. That would also, I would assume, involve their experience and get an insight into what was going on around them. And how did you come up with this idea to have it be crowdsourced in this way, where folks submit footage of their experiences?
Yeah, so that's actually also like an inspiration from my brother-in-law, because he was like in that city and saying like, when I come back, I'm going to write a memoir for myself. So then I was like listening, just like beside the phone and just listen to that. And my sister like told me that her husband wants to do that, and then I say, maybe then I can do a documentary. Yeah, and then I think about my friend. I mean, at that time, that like Nancy and I, we were working on her project Rocky Flats, and we have a conversation or like a meeting in person or whatever. But suddenly, like New York got was locked down, and people had to just like stay home or whatever. We couldn't do things anymore, and at that time, I also like I was ready to go to a film festival in California. I bought the tickets, yeah, and then I need to cancel, and that was a big mess. Like Nancy also had a trip at that time. So we were all on this like phone call, like doing those cancellation, and didn't succeed, I think. Yeah. And then we start, so we pick up the phone, chat or whatever, and we start to talk about that, just imagine what's going to happen in the near future. Like this is just a very surreal situation, like for everybody over the world. And we think about, like I talk about my family or whatever, and then we all have friends in different corner in the world, at different corner of the world. So then we just like think about that. Oh, I wonder what's going on in other place. What's their lockdown situation would be. Yeah, so we start to reach out to our friends, and many of them are in different countries. So then some people are, it's very surprisingly that people just when I brought up this idea, like, hey, can you just film something for us? And they are just like, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Got nothing else going on, right?
Yeah. Yes. And many of them are actually pretty much like like a professional doing like a video or whatever. And also like people, my friends, like who is Feng Chunhui, who is the another producer and also composer for this film. He got a lot of connection over the world, and he also based in Queens. He is in Jackson Heights. Unfortunately, he cannot come today, but he helped. Chunhui. Yeah, he helped us to like connect with his friends in Germany, who is from Malaysia originally. He was just in Germany, in Germany for artist residency, but also like forced to come back or whatever, and also it's the international flights and a lot of connection during the flights. Yeah. So that's all very messed up. So we got him to participate, and he always brought a camera with him, like when he has those like interesting international tours. So he just right away just like send us his the day before this like a footage, like he was on the bike and wandering around like the day before lockdown in Germany.
Some of the imagery, it was like, for folks that might not have seen the film yet, there's a lot of scenes of the lockdown just as they started, right? Empty streets, empty metro stations, stores shuttered, like a lot of the imagery that you saw at the start of the pandemic. So I was very, surprised to see, such footage from such an early point in the pandemic. So I'd assume that you mobilized very quickly. Nancy, how quickly did you get involved in the project? I know you were working on another film, as Hsuan just said.
Yeah, so it was really, she told me about what she was doing, and I said, oh, well, do you need this country? Do you need that country? Okay. So I also have friends all over the world, and
no big deal. NBD.
Yeah. So some friends of mine in Amsterdam and friends of mine in Tokyo, and all over. And so we just kind of started it just kind of ballooned out to 13 countries, and
you mind just naming a few, just so folks that might not have seen the film are familiar with how far it reaches?
Yeah, so we have Russia, we have the UK, the US, obviously, and
Japan.
We have Japan,
Malaysia, Germany, Amsterdam, Where else?
We have Italy. We have Milan.
Oh yeah, right.
We have Russia, UK, US.
We have China, of course.
We have China, of course.
We have Taiwan. Yes.
Malaysia as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you've said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're connected with your global network.
Yeah. So we, I started reaching out to friends in Spain as well, and just sort of all over the place, just checking in with people. I have friends in Norway. Like it was just sort of checking in with people and seeing if they would want to participate. And, it was really a sort of wonderful process, because I was in my apartment in Washington Heights, and Hsuan was in her apartment in
at that time, it's Woodside.
Yeah, Woodside. Yeah. So it was this kind of thing where we were all just so scared in our places, like just sort of shocked, not sure what to do, and feeling like, okay, well, I'm a filmmaker. I had planned to go and film more of my feature, and it's like, that's not going to happen. I'm not getting on a plane. This is not happening. So it was like this way of like creating, when we were sort of feeling kind of stifled in a certain way, as people who are out and about doing all sorts of actions basically all the time. So it was a way to be creative in that space, in that small space. Most of the New York participants were your friends and your connections.
My friend. Oh yes.
Yeah.
That's right, my friends.
Yeah.
So you tapped into close. These are all close people close to you. That is within the film.
Yeah. So actually,
mostly.
Right. So I think like in my case, I start to talking to friends. Then I talked to Nancy and asking like, do you have friends in that country? And so Nancy introduced her friends to me. Then we connect, and we get on the we do have another producer. He's not here today. He's originally from UK, so he got our UK people like in Manchester, who has a newborn at that time. That was really amazing.
Yeah. That's a great scene. Actually, it brings me to a question. Is there a certain story or person in the film that you most identify with? And if you do, could you just give a brief recap of the story that they're telling, just for folks that might not have seen the film? You can take a second if you need as well.
Yeah, I immediately think about. I think everyone has a very unique story, like very personal, just unique story about themselves. But I immediately think about Lindsay in where is she?
She's in Milan.
Okay, outside Milan, I think.
Oh,
but also Italy, nearby. So her situation is very interesting. That she is actually she is a New Yorker, but she moved to Italy for a job and just arrived there. Soon later, got locked down. So she even couldn't she tried to still being positive. But it's just hard. So I see her like a very humorous, in the beginning, if you remember, she was pouring cocktails, and just joke about herself. But it's just trying to be mentally strong, but it's just really hard because it's just the pandemic, the worldwide pandemic, who would think about we will face this
this moment.
situation, this moment like in our life, it's just for everybody, it's just unexpected. So people just like have to hang there, and I think that her story encourage other people who are like almost cannot keep on, but seeing other people's story like realizing it's not only ourselves like being in the situation, it's everybody in the situation. So with all this like different small story, like people seeing like they can relate it to their personal problem, like during the pandemic, what's the challenge they encountered, and got inspiration. Just keep moving, I hope.
Keep moving on. The story, if I remember correctly, was you said Lindsay had just moved from. She was a New Yorker that just moved to Italy at the start of the pandemic or just before the pandemic. And the scene that you were just describing was that she starts off by making a cocktail for herself. The New York remedy. But also has scenes, if I remember correctly, of her doing yoga and trying to like just reimagine her lifestyle inside, right? That's so I remember that story specifically. Nancy, was there one that you that came to mind that you most related with? It could be the not necessarily the person, but maybe their experience that
I mean having. I definitely.
And if you didn't, go ahead and say no, because that's also part of the experience.
Right. Yeah. I actually, Lindsay, definitely, I can feel that with Lindsay, for sure. Trying to think. I think a lot of folks, one of the things that was a real sort of thread throughout all of the stories was the inaction from the government, whichever government or local government it was a lot of, we don't know what to do because we're at the mercy of our elected officials, and they're saying this, but people are doing this, or that seemed to me, that's one of the sort of threads, I think, that kind of goes through all of the stories, where for example, there's Laura in Tokyo, and she's frustrated because the government sent her a face mask, but it doesn't fit right, or they sent one face mask to everybody in Tokyo, and that's just not enough. That's not enough. That's not enough of a measure to combat this highly communicable, illness. So, so that's one, this sort of frustration and, what am I supposed to do? I have to go to work, you can suggest to managers not to bring people into the office, but, it's just a lot of, actually, as Rose said, like pointing fingers and not really was it living up to the moment, like not really like being ready to sort of attack a crisis, like journalists, like they're ready to go when there's a thing, they're ready to go. Filmmakers, documentarians, like we're ready to go when something happens, but it's like these governments just sort of, they're like, oh, well, we can't have panic. So,
I remember that comment in Tokyo. It was, if I remember correctly, the participant had shared that they're just extending the lockdown every week. They're doing it week by week, or it was like little by little, and to kind of, as she described, or they described, to kind of keep back the panic, right? Of like, well, how long is this going to happen? And I also remember a lot of overarching themes about how folks that would be coming from one country into the other, with one country having a certain set of policies and precautions that the second country they visited had none of, right? It was the country of the person where everyone is wearing masks into the country where nobody is even seen with a mask, right? And that kind of that disconnect between, if you remember what I'm talking about.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, some of our favorite footage is the Russian footage, because for us, it's so different from what we experience in New York, but also I haven't been to Russia. I mean, it's like this sort of wonderful window for us to sort of see something starkly different.
Do you mind just describing a little bit for folks that haven't seen what makes it so different for you?
Well, you see the countryside. You see, this is the story of a mother who has to be the coach, the teacher, the mom, she's helping her son practice swimming while
that
on
was
the
a
table.
Great scene.
Yeah,
on the table. So the image for folks is that it's a young boy laying across the table with half of his torso like on the edge of the table, off of the table, and his mother's holding his feet, and he's almost like practicing his dives. And that's one of the scenes that definitely stayed with me after having watched. It was great. And actually, now that I'm mentioning it, there was certain scenes as well that, like, while there was a lot of experiences that there were a few experiences that I could relate to, and there were several in which I felt, I guess the word would be grateful that I didn't have to experience. And one of them was, the challenge of raising a child at the start of pandemic was, the questions. This young man in the UK was having concerns about what his child's future would look like, and how much exposure to other children this child would have, and just questions on how to do it at all. Which brings me actually to my next question, which would be that there are, like, what do you see that not everyone can relate to? What are things that affect only certain kind of communities that are kind of spoken about in the film? Because there's that together idea, but I think there's also a lot of themes that get to like the very specific kind of experiences of certain folks throughout the pandemic.
Yes. So for Asian community, it's actually we encounter some specific challenging during the time. In the film, like, we actually bring up two examples. Like, one is in Jackson Heights. Our friends, a Japanese lady, got into this incident, like some white man just like chasing after her and call her like Wuhan, whatever. So it's very scary. And another guy in UK, who is actually my family member, in London, and he also encountered like a racism situation. Same thing. Like I think they say like, if I'm not wrong, it say like, "Oh, hello, China," something Wuhan. But those very disturbing message. And just talking about that, and I mean, outside the field, like, I also have friends that on and off, like, telling me, I mean, Asian friends, they're telling me like, so I saw my friends who like start to carrying a baseball bat, and I said, "What? You start to play baseball?" He like, "No, it's someone spit on me in Chinatown, and I think that's a good idea if I start to carry this." So, and not really like going to hit people or whatever, but sort of scare them off or something. But it's really sad. And just recently, just few weeks ago, I went out on the street and just adjusting my mask, and some whatever guy just walked by, and yes, he just like very angry talking to me. I mean, yeah, he was like, "Yes, wear your mask, like China or whatever," and all that kind of threatened attitude. And at that moment, I also feel like I've been in this process of making this film. Like, I listen to other people's experience. I mean, myself, back at that time, I mean, back then I was like mostly at indoors. I didn't go out. So, collecting message and footage and do the editing. And I would say, oh, okay, that's a story we have, like, in our community, but just like recently, like myself, like when I encountered that situation, and even though it's just in comparison, it's a more like a less threatened, but still, it's like a kind of make me to feel like, oh, I'm also kind of scared by that kind of the situation and just like feeling very uncomfortable. Yeah. So I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you have to experience that. There's a question that dawned on me, I think, to your comment about, the anti-racism in the UK, the scene of anti-racism in the UK, or that incident. It's that comment of that I had heard and know of stories of it happening in New York City, and to understand that this happened globally as well is, one of these topics that, how do I say, globally, is part of the global experience, right? It was like this global anti-racism around the coronavirus. So, I was, to hear the specific stories, and actually, you were kind enough to share with us a clip of what of this instance that you're talking about in Jackson Heights of your friend Tomoko, and I'll share it here now in the chat for folks to get a sneak preview before the film before we maybe have a chance to see the film. But yeah, I was it's that conversation of the individual experience. I think it spoke to, I think my thoughts around here are like, it spoke to the individual experience of everyone, but also the fact that this has happened globally, right? It was, I think, just the within the larger theme of the film that, like, no surprise, alone / together, right? That these things are happening in what would feel like maybe isolated incidents, but it's not. It's like the effect of the sickness of racism, as well as the sickness of coronavirus. Actually, now that you mentioned some of your experiences in New York, was there any part of living in New York that inspired the film? You're living in New York that kind of shaped the way the film turned out?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, as a filmmaker, that you, especially the documentary filmmaker, you just use the, the reality, the scenes, the surrounding to create your, the story in your mind. So I think that was around the time, like when we announced lockdown, like in New York, and that was before lockdown, just a few days. But we know that maybe 2 days later we cannot go out, and that was very windy, cloudy afternoon. And I just say, okay, let's go to the Corona Park. There's the globe, and that looks very much like a sci-fi things. And we are facing this like unknown virus, and it's just such a sci-fi thing. And without they built the stage, so I went out. So
that's great. Yeah,
I just went on the train and go to Corona Park, and there is like very few people there, and so it looks very cloudy or whatever, windy, all that kind of situation. So I just like taking picture, taking there, and getting my selfie.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because one of my questions I was going to ask a little bit later was why you chose to start and end the film with the Unisphere, which, for folks that might not know, it's that stainless steel globe that's in the Flushing Meadows Corona Park. My question maybe practically why you started and ended the film with it, but also, like, what does it represent, more holistically?
So I think in my case, I actually chose that unconsciously. But as a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker, that's how you make story, connect story, you kind of sense something important. You go out and shoot, you come back and analyze the footage. And then I found this globe that really represent New York, global, the pandemic, and those rusty feeling of the statues. It just really looking. I mean, I don't know the original meaning of the statues, but it looks kind of broken in a way. Yeah, and also in this a background, this a very dark background. It's just pretty much we are entering at that time. We were entering this unknown situation, and we at some point we will be going out and reborn, hopefully, and but we have doubts of how should I say, frustration during the time, the hurts, all that kind of negative feeling, but we will try to get out and shake it off, and being alive again, I think. Yeah, so that's
Nancy. Does the globe mean represent anything for you, Nancy?
Yeah, well, to me, it actually represents Hsuan. It actually represents you to me as the author. That's how I see it. I see it as it beginning with your sort of curiosity, and then ending with the sort of it feels like a stamp, like a signature kind of thing, because it was that, just just the you can see the refracted light and the way in the world that you're reflecting back. And it's also, wasn't that also what the World's Fair? Wasn't the World's Fair also in Corona Park? Yeah, I mean, to me it just seems I don't know, just this quintessential shot of a place that's very famous to me. But yeah, it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite parts for sure.
Love it. Yeah, if you don't mind me sharing, I felt it was very representative of I think on the surface or on the nose, it was, a globe representing a global story, right? And I think there's something special about it existing in Queens, which was literally the epicenter of coronavirus for, a period of time, and what birthed the Epicenter newsletter and our the platform that we're on today. So I was curious if or how you feel New York City might reflect the wider pandemic experience. I think if you want a specific ask within that, I think there's a certain conversation to be had about how New York City reflects maybe, let's say, something like vaccine access, where you have, my understanding, parts of Manhattan where you can get the vaccine, more readily available. And then you have parts like, Queens Village, like we have in Queens, where we literally have a mobile vaccine unit because there's a scarcity of locations for folks to get vaccines. So, just an example of how I personally see New York representing the wider pandemic experience, but, take it as you like. Hsuan, do you have any ideas just yet?
About vaccine?
Well, excuse me, that would be like how New York City kind of reflects the wider pandemic experience, almost how New York City is as for most things an example or microcosm of the world. Sure.
Yeah. I like this question. I think that so this story actually, I mean, I told you about my film. We have a lot of participants just exactly in New York, but they are from different part of from different part in the world. So we have a Tibetan lady. Her name is Pema, a fashion designer. And so during the time, she is she sews a lot of masks give to elder people and the frontline like staff, like medical staff, just to do her best, the help. So that was really amazing. That it seemed like someone in this small apartment in Amherst, and just like constantly like sewing, and also that's very beautiful. Like she's a artist. Yeah. So we have that. We have Rose. She's a human right activist from China. So she observed the situation in a very wide, what should I say, scenarios. And we kind of seeing like how the stories. I mean, how this like a situation, how it's happened or why it's happened, and just link back to the history. So we kind of see the pattern. So I think like I think that I think in this story that's also a unique pattern. I haven't seen other story. I mean, other films talk about this yet. Yeah, so that would be interesting to kind of discover more. So what else? Who else we have in so we have Feng Chunhui, the composer, the producer, and who brought more people globally to come to these stories, and and he kind of from the beginning to the end. I think I have to say, like, his story, I mean, his music really bring this the film like a really like a on a
to another level.
Another level.
I will say, we did get a comment earlier in the discussion from user Kenny said, by the way, the film score is beautiful. So just want to make that point that, I also agree, it's brilliantly scored. So big props to him. So Nancy, was there, the kind of question once again was, how do you see New York maybe kind of reflecting or exemplifying the pandemic experience globally?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting, the vaccine thing you mentioned, I actually heard about you guys because one of your staff was on the Brian Lehrer show, and I was listening, and and so that's how I heard about you guys initially. But it was talking about exactly that how hard it was for people to access this information. Like, I remember my parents are in DC, and my dad was and he's like pretty good about this stuff, and he's 80, and he was just continually refreshing every Monday, trying to find an appointment, and he's like 80 years old, and right, like he was like within the yes, wonderful. Totally.
So just maybe what Nancy's noticing is that we and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we have our own vaccine initiative at Epicenter, where we're providing folks information on how to get vaccinated, and quite literally getting folks vaccinated through a mobile unit in Queens Village every Wednesdays and Sundays. As of now, right now it goes. Our next one will be on Wednesday the 15th, followed by Sunday the 19th. Past then, there's, it's to be determined when the truck will be there. But, if you need help scheduling aside from that, you can reach us at vaccines@Epicenter-NYC, or give a call at the number 917-818-2690. Once again, 917-818-2690. And that you can call, leave us a message to kind of help you get vaccinated. And that is first dose, second dose, booster, whatever you need, we got it. And I promise you, I'm not the one vaccinating you. It's a doctor. So, the conversation. But yeah, so as Nancy pointed out, she found us through that. But so your comments, I understand, were like just access, and okay.
Just being this sort of game of, as one friend of mine put it, she was really good at finding tickets on Ticketmaster. And so she became the person that all of her friends and family members to do this because she was like really good at getting tickets. Like those, like a sold out show on Ticketmaster, she could like go in, find this seat and then find that seat. And so she was doing that with the New York State when they, had vaccines, when they started to have vaccines available. So, she was able to do this. And I actually had told her she should volunteer somewhere to do it because she was just so good at it. But yeah, it's like things like that. They're bizarre. You have these randomly talented people who are trying to do something where it's like, why is it this challenging that, this person who is good at finding Ticketmaster, I think it was like she said it was like the exact same like kind of formula. So, but this like, okay, well, all right, well, I'm gonna be able to game the, get people access, ask my neighbors, this and that. But it's like, I thought about it and I thought, I have grandparents who passed away a few years ago, and I thought to myself, they would not have been able to figure this out if there wasn't a family member, doing this for them. And I that's one of the sort of stressful, kind of aspects of this is like first access, like just having access, but then also having the sort of patience to deal with these systems that aren't really, there's so many different ways to screw it up. And there's just so many different ways that, it's just was sort of like, go to these 5 websites. And if there's no, nothing there, go to there. And it just being this sort of like,
and then it was like, talk to this guy in a yellow coat. He'll give you a riddle. And if you answer the riddle right, he'll send you by a bridge. And like, then that guy will take you in a van. Yeah, it's overly challenging. Yeah. And I think you're hitting on
challenging. So and I also think I personally have a lot of frustrations with other countries not having access. And I think it's like this internal conflict that we all have of, we want to save ourselves. And then we also know that until everyone has access to, masks and, drugs and, all these things to help, until everybody has access, it's just a perpetual state of affairs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
I think you're hitting on something that anecdotally I've seen as one of the biggest hurdles, which is, once again, accessibility, right? Ease of access, right? It's the metaphor that I often talk about is, when things are that much harder, like a little bit harder for folks, it leads to them not acting, right? And I think, once again, the metaphor is you can tell yourself that going to the gym each day would be helpful holistically for your health, right? Yet it's cold, or your bed is that much warmer, and the distance between you and the gym gets that much further. And the metaphor there for access is if it takes 3, 4, 5 websites to visit to schedule your appointment, when you maybe have skepticism as is, like, it's going to lead to you not trying, right? So I think the solution that we found at Epicenter is you make access right in the space in which folks navigate, right? Like, we put our mobile vaccine unit in Queens Village in the path of folks going to the grocery store, picking their kids up from school, coming back from work. So the decision between getting vaccinated or not is not 3, 4, 5 websites and an appointment that you have to walk in, that you can schedule. It's now or not, right? It's like, I can do this right now. And the access, from my experience, once again, anecdotally, is that, folks sometimes don't have the time to even search these things, let alone be sick afterwards, right? And there's a lot of conversation around, anti-vaccine sentiment, and there's a myriad of different reasons why folks choose not to. But one of the biggest things, once again, is just like putting it in front of people where they can, right? And I think that's what it sounds like, you experienced with your father, and we were saying, wider. And I just want to point out too, by the way, Nancy, I'll say here that Mitra Epicenter's co-founder and publisher, dropped in that was her on the Brian Lair show, and she's now watching you.
Wonderful.
Learning from you. That's great. And actually that actually leads us to a great point. If folks have questions for the team right now, feel free to drop them in. I'll ask them right now. While we're waiting for hopefully folks to drop in a question or two. I have one last thing to ask. What impact do you hope the film has? You can take a second if you'd like to. Yeah, that was my question while we're waiting for folks to maybe drop in a question or two.
So for me, I feel like this project, as a director and the editor, looking through all the footage and, realize that people have this numerous challenges like during the time, and also like it's their personal experience, but can relate to other people's experience or other people's what should I say, the answer they are looking for. My hope will be I hope my film could be of course my film doesn't including all these all these challenges or problems that people encounters, but hopefully people can find some inspiration through each stories. And just also in general, I feel hopefully my story, this film could bring some comfort to people during the time, and being humble to each other, because everybody is angry. Yeah. And that would be my
Great, excellent.
Yeah.
And Nancy, is there any potential impact that you hope the film has?
Well, one thing that she did not bring up yet necessarily, though maybe I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger, which is that the film is filled with immigrants. Pretty much everybody in the film is an immigrant, whether, besides Hsuan in Wuhan, but most other folks that are in the film are immigrants, and that's a big part of this story. And that's there's just there I think that we need to have more of these immigrant stories and more of this normalization of immigrants in as just members of society, and having just as much right to talk about what's going on with them in their own wherever they are, in this sort of just telling a different story. It's not necessarily the story of this American in America. It's these people in this country, or this person in this other country. Obviously we have in Italy, we have two people. One is Italian, Lorenzo, and then one is Lindsay, who's not Italian. So it's like we get so many different kinds of experiences. We get Lindsay's story that is just a really emotional story that we wouldn't get, So I think the power of these sort of individual stories can connect us.
Yeah.
I love that comment. Yeah.
Right. And also I feel so for me, immigrants, the concept of immigrants, it's not only people from one country to another country. It's just someone left their home, going to a new location, and so you will feel lonely, isolated when you're just going to a new place anyway. So I think that's talking about immigrants, it's kind of universal meaning in a way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Got it. Love the sentiments.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
The universal immigrant. Yes.
Yeah. Everybody's immigrants.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, folks, feel free to drop in a question. We have one from, once again, Mitra, our co-founder and publisher of Epicenter. She says, any country in the film where the response to COVID seemed especially good and that we can learn from? I feel like as we head into year 3 of the pandemic, we're still stumbling. So either you can take that.
Taiwan was one that we highlighted, actually.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, since I'm from Taiwan, yeah. So I guess one thing people in Taiwan, the government in Taiwan, respond quickly. And one of the reasons is that we had SARS several years ago, so the fear still exists. So we are we always looking at our neighbor, the neighbor country, which one? Yeah, just see what's going on. Yeah, if there is something happen, we in Taiwan, that people just immediately gear up, get the information and respond to it. So that's one thing that why this time the pandemic didn't hit us that much. I mean, compare globally, yeah. But I mean, on the other hand, one thing I need to say that my information might be not accurate at this moment because I'm here for such a long time. But as I know that we I mean, also the people and the government in Taiwan also want to help the world. So we try to bring our help to other countries need help. Ourselves, the vaccination is more. I mean, we want to get. I mean, people in Taiwan want to get vaccination as soon as possible. But also I think we haven't developed as much as other countries, and also we got other countries help to send us those vaccines so people can get the have the protection.
Was there something that Taiwan did in particular that you felt was impressive, or like Mitra said, especially good? Like one particular thing, maybe a policy or a practice or something that they did that was exemplary?
Yeah, sure. So I think the quarantine policy is actually pretty good. So as I know, I mean, maybe I'm wrong at some point, but as I know that we right now still very strict for people who come in. Maybe only, I mean, of course, special occasions, but maybe normally only people with the Taiwanese passport can come in. And we have very strict quarantine, 2 weeks in the hotels or other kind of the locations, and another 7 days a self quarantine after you left the hotel, and very heavy fine if you don't follow. Yeah, I think that's one thing that, and also for us, people who've been away from home for a long time, most of them, I mean, including myself, appreciate the policies because that's, people got lazy on them at some point. If they, getting in a place without those strict policy, they would just maybe they would go out to have a drink or whatever, doing, and carry the virus and just spread it. And people would do that. Yeah, so I appreciate that we have this kind of policies, and it actually make us to go home become a very expensive trip. But I mean, of course, some people really need to go home for some, some very important reason. But for other people, it's kind of, reduce the desire to go home. But on the other hand, it's kind of protect our loved one. Yeah,
it's
our
complicated.
families.
As everything is right now. Yeah.
It's frustrating, but I mean, I couldn't think other better options, I guess.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another question here from Rachel Crocker that says, a lot of issues that are highlighted in the film still exist today. Are you feeling optimistic or pessimistic about the future? And, feel free, Nancy or Hsuan, to take this one.
Nancy, do you want?
Sure. I mean, it's a mixed, I think it's a mixed bag. I mean, I think it started off a mixed bag. It's still a mixed bag. I want there to be more, as I mentioned before, I hope that, access, and there will be fewer, levels of access to kind of go through, having to go through all these different levels. And I hope that improves. I think that, at least in this country, Biden is trying to kind of move in that direction, but it's slow. It's been very slow. It's been like a slow trickle. And I think that there are policies that are being pushed out that are positive, certainly. I mean, like all of the racial justice protests that were going on, the Stop Asian Hate, I mean, all of that stuff is all good to have these conversations and good to talk about, but it's a long road, really long road, and I think one thing that, one thing that I think is, I am optimistic about is that, more people are caring about public health. They're thinking about public health. They're thinking about, it's this weird thing where in New York, people, some people are going and doing things, other people are not. But it's this sort of mental gymnastics that you're going through as you consider the risks with any activity that you're doing. And I don't think it's something that most people were really thinking about. Weird things like, oh, do I really want to sit on the subway? Or, why are we all putting our coats on this bed at this party? Like, that doesn't, it's just these things that we never really thought about, but it's, or the masks, wearing masks. There are so many people who didn't get any kind of sick, for years. So it's like these weird sort of interesting kind of things where we're just thinking about our health more, or just having that space, or people who were, during lockdown, people had the chance to think about what they wanted, from their lives. And, especially I think definitely a lot of restaurant workers, but like just a lot of workers in general, there's a huge surge in, unionizing, just people really thinking about what they want from their life, and not thinking, just continuing to kind of move without, sort of thinking, is this what I actually want? So I think that's really positive. I wish that masks and vaccines weren't political issues, and which they didn't seem to be too political before. Well, definitely the masks didn't seem like there was a political bent on that before, but so it's a mixed situation, but I think, the more stories that we have of someone else's experience, the better off we all are, really, in understanding. And all of the barriers that we have, it's it's a way to sort of bring those barriers down.
Well said. I really like the answer. Well, I would say thank you so much for jumping in today. I have one last question and an ask that is always specific to what's important to me, which is practical resources and community efforts, right? So my question to you two now is, are you aware of any community efforts or individual resources that folks can access that can maybe help them if they're struggling with some of the challenges within the film, right? The themes of the film, that is. So any kind of resources around, let's say, remote learning, it could be vaccine access, it could be mental health. What are some maybe practical ways that the community can get involved with some of the themes in the film?
I actually think actually we want to talk about it in the end, but I think I get brought up a little bit at this moment. We actually would want to use, with this film that, to collaborate with some organizations to use this film as a tool. It's not, so I mean, those organizations could be, specific for the, specific that topic about the, mental health or, long distance learning, all that things, and the stop Asian hate, the racism. So we actually want to connect with the organization and have more collaboration in the near future. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that's one of our goals. So that's I think, I don't know, I think Lindsay's story is one where I think a lot of people can identify. And I think, we had there's a surge in mental health requests. Like there's just not enough, mental health practitioners out there for the need. And it's just sort of burgeoned up. In terms of our own community, I mean, do you have any specific resources, Hsuan?
Not at this moment, but we do have, we have so many like people, the participants in different communities. Then we can ask them, and we can find out what kind of the resource.
Yeah, that would be excellent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if my thinking now too is that would be, I'd feel very grateful if some of the folks in the film that were especially brave to share some of their stories were in the situation where they maybe because of the incidents confronted or attended community events or things that maybe helped them, that folks that also watch the film can maybe take advantage of. And it sounds like too that hopefully using this film, once again, as Hsuan just said, as a tool to open these discussions too. And I'll plug Epicenter's own work right now. That once again, if you have any challenges scheduling for vaccines, we're here to help. We can and if we can bring up the information right there, you can reach out on our website at epicenter/vaccine-help. Or just stop by our mobile vaccine unit every Wednesday and Sunday. That is this Wednesday and this Sunday, the 15th and the 19th. That is in Queens Village, and you can get your first shot, your second shot, or your booster. I got my own booster there. The best one, I think, of the batch. But yeah, if you're also having trouble scheduling these things, you can also email us at vaccine@epicenter.nyc or call 917-818-2690. Once again, 917-818-2690. That is a real number. You can call it. Please don't spam it, because that is us. We're here to help, but not maybe be trolled. I don't know if I just stoked the fires, but here we are anyway. We're doing this live. But yeah, that said, we're here to help you out with any kind of vaccine information, as well as actually walk-in vaccine appointments in Queens Village, that is. But back to the film, and I want to say thank you so much for joining the conversation today. This was a film that, in watching once again, I think reflected a lot of the themes that I saw within the pandemic experience of New York City. And I think having something that kind of reminds me that, a young woman in Milan, as well as a young family in Russia, and, a fellow neighbor in Jackson Heights are all kind of individually sharing this challenging experience, but we're all together in this. So, thank you so much, you two, for coming in. And if you want to catch the film, I will drop it in right now, the chat. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we jumped off?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, well, right now we're actually raising some final funds to complete post-production. So that's, getting our color finished, getting, clips in the film, news clips, license, like stuff like that. We're just trying to raise our last, basically, amount of money for that. And so we've actually already raised $100 so far through donations. So
Nice.
People have been donating as they've been watching, which is fantastic. So basically with your support, we can complete those final steps. And you can just do so basically where you're watching the show and tell link. There's multiple options for donations through the platform.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Hsuan, anything you wanted to share before we jump off?
So yeah, sure. So like I just mentioned that we actually would like to connect with organizations who would be interested in using the film, or the whole film or the part of the film to to emphasize some subjects. So they can contact us and we can talk about it. Yes.
Would the best email for that be the info.panvideo?
Yes, at gmail.com.
Great, I'll drop that. So I'm
Yeah,
dropping
yeah.
that email address in the chat right now. For folks
Yeah.
that might just be listening, that is info.pan, P-A-N, video @gmail.com, info.panvideo@gmail.com. And that is if you want to connect with the filmmakers to collaborate. They want to reach communities and use this film as a tool, as well as, I'll repeat what Nancy shared earlier, which was, you can watch the film right now, a sneak preview until December 19th. That was just extended, as well as donate to the film at the same link. So once again, thank you so much, Hsuan and Nancy, for jumping on today and having this conversation. And for everyone else that watched, thank you so much for dropping your questions and your comments. I wanted to say that someone earlier on, Greg, had shared that great behind the scenes conversation, and I thought it was as well. So everyone, I hope you have a wonderful night and take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.